It's been 20 years since when it started, but the memory hasn't aged a day. It sits inside me, fresh as breath on glass, as if it just happened last night. I grew up in a quiet house on a quiet street. Nothing fancy. My parents worked hard, gave my siblings and me more than enough to keep the world from feeling harsh. We weren't rich, not even close, but we weren't poor either. At least I never felt poor. By all accounts, mine was a happy childhood, ordinary and easy. I was a normal kid who laughed, played, colored between the lines without a worry to cloud my little head. Until it happened. That was the night I learned that darkness isn't empty, that in the silence of night, some things breathe and wait. I couldn't tell you the date, not exactly. Only that it was a school night, and I couldn't have been more than 4 years old when it began to follow me. Sometimes I catch myself being dragged backward, back into the dim corridors of memory, where time itself feels stitched together by shadows. The hallway comes first, long, narrow, and silent. Its walls breathe with a darkness that never felt entirely empty. And at the very end, there it stood, the grandfather clock. Not just a clock, no, a sentinel. Its frame looming in the gloom, carved wood twisting like something too intricate to be human hands. The pendulum swayed in slow arcs, carving seconds into the air. Tick, tick, tick. Each sound hit harder than it should, echoing down the floorboards until it crawled beneath my skin. The longer I listened, the less it sounded mechanical. There was weight in it, like a heartbeat, like breathing. And then the chime. It rang hollow and metallic, filling the house in a way that made the silence afterward unbearable, because that's when I always heard it. The faintest shift, a creak, a whisper, something standing just out of sight, moving in rhythm with the pendulum. And once you've heard that, you don't forget. You never forget. I couldn't tell you what it was. What kind of thing crawls out from the dark and lingers? And I say it because there was never a face to remember, not even the mercy of a shadow I could name. No, all it left me with was the voice. It was low and patient, curling itself into my bones like it had been waiting there all along. That evening was like any other. I finished scribbling in my color book, washed the crayons from my hands, took my bath, then put on my pajamas. Mom kissed me goodnight, tucked me in, and read me a story in that soft way mothers do, then left my door cracked just enough to let the hallway light spill through. I fell asleep to that glow. When morning came, I woke to my mother, shaking me gently for school. The sun wasn't up yet, just a bruised hint of dawn outside the window. And that's when I heard it. At first I thought it was strange, peculiar even. Then it unsettled me. It terrified me. A voice, low, close, too close.
Don't turn around.
3 words, that was all. My eyes shot open. The hairs on my neck bristled like wires. I didn't feel breath on my skin. I didn't feel a weight pressing the mattress, but I heard it, as real as anything I've ever heard in my life. Don't turn around. I froze. I didn't turn. I shot up and ran to the door, cutting on my light. I glanced back at the bed. It was empty. No one was there. The fear, strangely, it faded as quickly as it came. By the time I sat down to eat breakfast, it was already slipping away, dissolving into the noise of clinking spoons and morning chatter. Children have a way of bouncing back, tougher than we ever give them credit for. Maybe that's why I didn't carry it with me that day. Not yet. Or maybe something made me forget. Maybe it made me forget. Like a hand brushing over memory, smudging the edges until I couldn't trust what I'd heard. I even wondered if I had imagined it, a dream I dragged with me into the morning light. But the thing is, dreams don't come back. And this, whatever it was, it came back. It always comes back. Night after night, the same ritual. Homework, coloring book, bath, pajamas, bed, morning, and then like clockwork.
Don't turn around.
And I didn't, but the voice felt real, too real. So I got out of bed, and just like before, right before I left the room, I turned. Nothing, no one, just an empty bed waiting for me to come back. Funny thing though, every morning, as soon as I stepped out of my bedroom, since it first happened, I didn't give it a second thought. I always went about my day like any other, cereal, cartoons, school, recess. The voice always faded into the static of memory, as if it had never happened at all. But then one day, something changed. By then, I'd grown used to hearing the voice every now and then. Always the same warning. Don't turn around. It had become almost routine, a strange background noise that I carried, like the hum of an old refrigerator. Unsettling, yes, but familiar. Until that morning. My mother woke me for school like always, but this time it did something it hadn't done before. It came closer than ever, a whisper pressed against the shell of my ear.
Don't turn around.
Only this time, I'd had enough. I was tired of it. Tired of being warned, tired of the not knowing. Even at 4 years old, there's a point when fear twists into defiance. I thought, fine, let's see you then. Let's find out who or what you are. I gathered what little courage a child could summon, breathed deep, and began to turn my head. And that's when it happened. Before my eyes could even break past the edge of my pillow, I felt it. I felt its slender fingers, cold and deliberate, pressing against the back of my skull. Not shoving, not clawing, just holding me in place, keeping me from seeing. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. My heart was a drum gone mad inside my chest. An instinct took over. I leapt from the bed, bolted for the door, then stopped. Just stopped halfway to the hallway. My chest heaving, my little hands trembling at my sides. And for the first time, I obeyed. I didn't turn around, not even once. Funny thing though, after that it was gone. No more whispers, no more warnings. Whoever or whatever it was seemed to vanish, slipping back into whatever shadow it crawled out of. And just like children always do, I let it go. The memories dulled, even blurred, and before I knew it, years had passed. Life filled the space where the fear had been. Summers with neighborhood kids, winter holidays with family, scraped knees and bike rides. Days were long, and there were nights filled with fireflies. And then suddenly I was older, 5th grade. I couldn't tell you what part of the year it was. Beginning, middle, or end, summer or winter, doesn't matter. What I do remember is the night it came back. And this time, it didn't whisper. It manifested into something more. I was wide awake, long past bedtime. The house lay heavy in sleep while I carved out my own little rebellion, lit only by the pale flicker of the TV screen, video games, and late-night movies I had no business watching. The volume turned low, so low it was barely there, but every click of the controller still cracked like thunder in my guilty ears. By then, my door stayed cracked out of habit, though the hallway light no longer burned for me. Instead, the soft glow of the moonlight was just enough to find the bathroom in the dark. That's when the silence stretched too thin, and that's when the voice returned. But this one night, it was different. The night was dark, and my bedroom only illuminated by the full moon outside. And the room sat in a kind of silence that didn't feel natural, heavy and hollow. The only glow came from the moonlight, just enough to shape the shadows, but not enough to soften them. For some reason, I woke, one of those hazy states where you're not sure if you're dreaming or awake, caught between two worlds. But this time I saw it, or maybe I should say, them. Two figures stood in my doorway, black silhouettes, darker than the dark around them. Later in life, I'd come to hear people call them shadow men, but in that moment, all I could think was the men. My eyes adjusted, slowly carving them out of the dark. One tilted its head deliberately, as though it were studying me. It was taller than the other, its presence heavier somehow. They didn't move closer. They didn't cross the threshold. And strangely, I didn't feel terror, just an uneasy stillness, the kind of calm that feels borrowed.
Is he asleep?
And they just stood there, watching. The minutes stretched, dissolved, and then nothing. I don't remember falling asleep, but when I opened my eyes again, it was morning. Looking back now, the feeling they gave me wasn't new. It was the same strange current I'd felt as a 4-year-old when the voice first whispered not to turn around. Different words, different tone, but familiar, like an echo I couldn't place. I didn't tell anyone. I kept it folded tight inside me until the very next night. This time I had left the lamp by my bed on, one of those touch lamps with 3 brightness settings. I left it dim, barely aglow, just enough light to break the shadows. But it didn't matter, because when I woke again in that dreamlike haze, they were there, standing in the doorway, still, patient, and waiting.
He's not asleep yet.
We'll be back when he falls asleep.
My heart thudded in my chest, but still, no real fear, just recognition. And that's when it clicked. The reason their voices felt so damn familiar. They sounded like my father and my uncle. The next morning, I asked my mom if Dad and Uncle Mark were in my room. She said Dad worked late and Uncle Mark never came over. But when I mentioned the men who visited me the last 2 nights, she stopped talking, just froze. That's when I saw something I'll never forget. See, my mother isn't one to entertain ghost stories or superstitions. She hates even hearing about them. Says if she listens too closely, she'll dream about it. And that alone is enough to scare her. But the look on her face that morning, it wasn't annoyance, it wasn't dismissal, it was fear, plain and raw. The kind of fear that leaks into the air and makes you wonder if you're supposed to be afraid too. In that moment, I decided to never bring it up again. And what's stranger still, I never saw those 2 shadow men again. Not as a child, not for years, at least not until much later, when it came back again. Years passed, and the boy became a man. I left home for college across state, chasing books, art, and the kind of freedom you only taste once. But every summer, I returned, working alongside my father in his construction business. Long days under the sun and tired evenings at home. And on weekends, I indulged myself. Late nights turned into early mornings, binging movies, losing hours to television, stacking bowls of popcorn and empty cans of soda. It was the quiet hum of a house at rest. It must have been close to 3 in the morning when I decided to call it a night. I left the bathroom, the cool tile still clinging to my feet, and started back toward my room. That's when it happened. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Something had shifted in the air. I turned, and it was there, right in front of me. This time, there were no whispers, no half-seen silhouettes, no question of whether I was awake or dreaming. At the far end of the hallway stood a figure. That thing was slender. It was towering, easily 9 or 10 feet tall. Its body was crooked, and its limbs too long, arms dragging down like shadows given form. No face, no features, just darkness stretched into something human enough to be wrong. It looked at me, or I felt it looking, then in a sudden motion it slid into the wall and was gone. In reality, it lasted less than a second, but in my mind it unfolded in slow motion. Like I'd become the main character in my own horror film. My heart slammed so hard against my ribs I could hear it in my ears. A pounding drum, desperate, almost tearing its way out of my throat. That thing, whatever it was, pulled every buried memory back into me. The whispers, the voice, the hands that pressed my head down at 4 years old. Memories I thought I'd locked away came rushing back like they'd only just happened. When my body finally caught up with my fear, I ran straight down the hall, into my room, slamming the door shut like the wood could keep it out. For a moment, I expected to hear it following the scrape of its long limbs dragging closer, but there was nothing, just silence. After that night, I tried to reason it out. I even questioned if my mind played a trick on me. Maybe it really was a hallucination, or maybe the same thing that stalked me as a child was finally tired of hiding and finally revealed itself. Had it grown with me, or had it followed me all this time after all these years? One thing I know for certain, since that night, I never slept in the dark again. Now I keep the light on, always, because that was the night I learned to truly be afraid of the dark. But even that didn't prepare me for what came later. The night I saw my monster face to face. But that is a story for another day. So tell me, have you ever felt it too? A whisper when no one was there? A shadow lingering just beyond the door? A figure that didn't belong? If you have, share your story below. And remember, this is only the beginning. Thanks for watching.